on YouTube. This one. No transition back. That one. Hi guys, welcome back. We're almost in agreement. We are doing more shows about city council and this upcoming city council race. Trying to work our way through all these candidates. Got about half, I think. Anyway, teaser is that Seema Singh's here with me. We've had her on the show before as a council person, but this time we're going to talk more specifically about her intent on this rerun and some of the different issues that she's running on this time. And we may make fun of her challenger because, at least according to the financials, he's not looking very good. But that's a whole separate conversation that I still don't quite understand how much money matters. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can find us at almostinagreement.com. From there, you are welcome to view all the episodes on the website, or you can go to your favorite podcast provider. And while you're at any of these places, Facebook, Twitter, or any of your podcast providers, please give us a like, share, best rating that you can get away with on the site. That helps us get pushed up in the algorithms, and hopefully more people can see us that way. So we're almost in agreement. Like I said, Seema Singh is with me, and we're going to chat about stuff. So here we go. Hi, Seema.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. Sorry I had to cancel on you before. My cat died.
Life happens.
Suddenly, yes.
Life happens. Thanks
for rescheduling.
Not a problem at all. I got my list here, and I'm throwing it on the floor. But I'm making my way through it of the city council candidates. And I've got a handful of the new people, and then I think you're my first incumbent that I'm officially talking to in this is campaign mode instead of this, what are we doing as a city council person currently. So that being said, let's rehash. Same thing we did last time you were here. Let's give us the general descriptor of the who is in District 3 that you were seeking to represent. Like, what is the locations around town?
So it is Middlebrook Pike to Clinton Highway, Merchants Drive, and the spine through the middle is Western Avenue. One end of it is Shad Road, and the changes that are happening to that is going to be probably one of the largest changes in the 3rd District.
Right, Shad Road is definitely moving and shaking. That new big old food city up there. That's such a weird little ism. That where Shad Road changes crosses Oak Ridge Highway, but then you got to jump over into Ball Camp or whatever because it just skips that weird little thing.
Oh yeah,
because they put
district lines.
Well, not the district lines part, the road, whatever Shad Road is.
Right.
Where like it's all paved out like it's a big deal, but then it ends right before it gets to I guess it's Hardin Valley on the other side. What's on the other side? I
believe so.
Or is it Lovell? Anyway, somewhere where it gets over there close to
right, and that's where they'll get to is
Pellissippi
Parkway.
Yeah.
So it's a game changer for everyone that lives in that area.
It'll be a nice addition to the east-west abilities without having to use the interstate through town for sure. Okay, so again, we've had you on before, and so we've talked about some stuff, but I guess let's do a little bit more before we get to officially like your campaign part of it. It's like last time you were here, I remember we joked about whether you were running again or not, and at the time you said maybe, and I think that's an exact quote with the entire length of the M and everything.
It was a solid maybe.
It was a strong maybe. So what was it that said okay, definitely?
I would have stepped back if there was somebody who I would be proud to represent me.
Okay.
And
which is the same reason you ran in the first place, because there was nobody.
Exactly. I sense a theme. So yeah, it's a difficult choice, but I also want to put to use all of the work and all of the knowledge that I have gained over the last 4 years. I don't want that to go to waste.
Right.
It was still a difficult decision. I know when I was handing in my petition to Chris at the Election Commission, I was like having trouble letting go of it. But now I am all in.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could have given it to him and then changed your mind. There's that mind changing period, because that's always I was talking to Chris yesterday. We're trying to set him up again for hey everybody, it's time to vote show. We're going for early August on that, but it's definitely interesting. So one of the things that I've learned through this process specifically, and I'm curious your thoughts on it, because again, just for reference, I'm not a city resident, so I don't get to vote in this in any way, shape, or form. I'm by a whopping 6 inches. I'm not a city resident, but the thing that I find really interesting, I really am curious about how just everybody in general feels about this process and the way the city election differs in that you primary your district and you general the entire city. The more I think about it, the less I like it. The more I think it's a problem. Because especially this year with the GOP's decided to be very much more hands-on than they have been in the past. And what has generally been the majority of the city being what would be under the Democratic umbrella if they called themselves that, because we try to pretend like it's not a partisan race, but it still is. And then we have the city council movement working as well. Because what I find interesting, because you are a part of the city council movement, correct?
No? I'm not.
Did they tag you in it? Why did that get in my head?
That is who I was with.
Okay,
when I initially ran.
Okay.
But we divorced.
Okay, well then let's pause on my complaints about the election process and stick on this topic for a second. Tell me more about what that transition was.
And I want to get back to what we were talking about.
I do too, because it drives me crazy.
That pisses me off too. My platform and values are very similar. My techniques and style are very different. So on that was our division about 6-8 months into my term. I want to be supported by people who trust my judgment, not tell me what to do.
Okay. I resent the premise that there's anybody telling you what to do that isn't a constituent specifically.
I want to hear from all constituents.
Right.
Right? I take all of that information in and make a decision that I hope serves the most of us.
Right, because for me, I actively get angry about partisanship in the way that, and I've tried this, like one of the few things I try to kind of poke at. I try to be generally whoever I have in here, you get to talk about your stuff and I ask kind of questions like that. But I don't think I'm smart enough to do any real trap, journalism or whatever that's called. But the one that I kind of poke at on both sides of the aisle is how much does party say? How many times do you get a call from the state chair or the county chair or whatever it is and be like, hey, this issue that's going on here, this is how the party feels about it. How does that work? Because I know it's there, but everybody's real good about being real vague about it.
I have never gotten a call from the Democratic Party.
Right, but what the impression that I'm getting is from the city council movement sake, at least, that there was push from them expecting things out of you that you either didn't agree with necessarily or didn't agree with the methods. And so I could appreciate that as because I'm in the same boat. I don't like the idea of, because again, that's why this topic is interesting to me, is because with the city council movement and what's been going on with them and their growth from, a candidate to, was it 2 candidates in your first election? It was you and
who were running,
right?
Or who won?
Who were running?
4 were
4
running.
Total running, okay.
And then 2 were eliminated, so to speak, in the primary.
Okay.
And then Amelia Parker came in a tie.
Right. So, I had Dan Davis on and he explained how much that was his fault. It's a funny story. Because he was the other in that race.
Right.
Because that's what's interesting to me about it, is that you got, theoretically, with the way the system works right now, is that if the city council movement at large is doing well, they're really active, and I always try to put it let's say David Hayes in District 1 really does it and really turns out a lot more than District 1 normally does. Gets through the primary process, and those same set of people come out for the general, where maybe a District 4 with Harper, or that's 6. 6 with Harper doesn't have a very good turnout, but she gets through the primary, but now all these District 1 city council people are voting citywide, and that's going to push her above maybe the Gwen McKenzie that District 6 liked, but citywide they like Harper. And so that's what I don't like about this format, because I feel like, and if I understand it correctly from the guys from Compass when they're on here, this is the purpose of the election format that we have here has been flipped on its head. The reason they did it in the first place was the really bad racist version of it, where now it's coming into what is a flipped over version, where we're now getting into just one of those, I don't know, the more I get into it, the more it's nobody ever seems to consider how the other side's going to use a tool that they put in place for themselves.
So I came in second in the primary for my district.
Right.
But I came in first citywide.
Right.
So that did turn it on its head.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so, which, I didn't mean to Anyway, if I sounded bad, I didn't mean it that way. I just the premise being that maybe you're a good person to talk to about it, because it was very clear by your primary that your district had a vision and you weren't in it. But with the way the election worked, your district, and I don't mean to say this in a mean way, but it's just that's the only way I can think of to say it, is that your district has to deal with you as their council person because of the way the election works.
Right.
And whether it worked out well or whatever, that's fine. And it appears to me that you're probably the most likely incumbent to keep the job of everybody in the race, at least in my very elementary analysis of what I see. And so I find that the format I find concerning, not the history of it per se, but the format moving forward. I think it's weird.
It is weird. And I do want to jump in because I know you weren't trying to disparage anything, but I know that I have turned around to serve my district.
Right.
It's constantly about forgiveness and moving on and uniting with people that I'm supposed to help.
Right.
So putting that in. What I don't like about this is that it's very confusing. I have to explain this constantly. And if we talked about civics a lot last time I was here. If I don't know, if there's a state level, district numbering, city level, this, how I know that there are times when I bump into something that's very complicated and go, all right, I don't know what to do with that. I'm not going to deal with it.
Right.
And it prevents people from getting involved.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And the joy of it is sometime throughout this year and then early next year, they're all going to move around. All the lines are going to get redrawn. We're all redistricting. We're doing that whole game too. And so, I've spent the last year and a half getting really excited and really interested in all this stuff, and now I have to relearn everything, which in fairness, I don't know everything yet anyway, but it is absolutely confusing too, because and especially I'm really upset about how early the 22 election's starting right now too. Because I think that's adding to the layers of confusion, because we now have 22 candidates starting, like the sheriff's office being a particular one.
Right.
Jimmy and Spangler have both started in earnest with billboards and all sorts of stuff going up. And
all
it's
the
like,
county elections are
and
getting
it's like,
complicated.
and so people are going to go into the election booth looking for an election that isn't there yet, and be confused by that. And more importantly, we have stump speeches and stuff like that from candidates that are a year and a half away, and we're not hearing from the candidates that are running right now. And so I think that's an issue. I don't know if there's a structure needs to be put in place. I just feel like that should be just an obvious. Like, I feel like, why would you, I could say announce now, that's fine, but why would you jump in and actually start being actively campaigning a year and a half ahead of time? Well, you have a position where
you can do something about that, right? You have a pulpit where you can say, all right, I'm going to be interviewing the people who, this is our next election. Let's pay attention to this first.
Yeah, and I was actually really on that same kind of tone. I was really impressed. I'd like to talk bad about all the local media, but it's a Sunday morning show, so nobody watches it. But the Sunday morning show, they had all three District 1 candidates on, and they were talking about stuff, and it's kind of roundtabling it. And I was like, oh, yeah, good job. That's the kind of stuff that I'd like to see at a time that normal people watch TV instead of 10 a.m. on a Sunday when, we're still in Knox County, so most people are at church, and those that aren't at church are still asleep, like me. Happen to be awake for that one. But anyway, so we went off on the actual election part of it. And so it was you left the city council movement for a means conversation, if I'm understanding correctly. It's the means of the way they go about what they do is not what you're doing with. It's not that the ideals are wrong.
Right.
It's that the means are an issue.
They have an important place in all of these conversations, but I'm in a different position right now. If I yell F you to all my colleagues and everybody that I disagree with, and then have to come back the next morning and go, sorry about that. Right. I am never going to build coalitions. I'm going to remain one vote that is by myself and never does anything. Right. And that there's no effectiveness in that.
But what happens if they're, if all three and then and you, that's 4 of 9, right?
What are you asking?
If assuming Harper, just for theoretical sake, Harper, Hayes, and McMahon all win, that's at least 3 FUs. If you're the 4th, that's 4. That's 4 of 9. If
I still don't do FUs.
That's fair.
That's not my nature. They're necessary, but the place where I am working is if I want to change status quo for good long term, then it's not yelling and screaming. It is hard policy work,
Right.
research, and building collaboration. I have never, ever insulted someone into doing what I want them to do.
Right. Okay. I think that's one of those that I can tend to agree with. I think 9 out of 10 people are going to dig their heels in harder when they're getting yelled at than be like, oh, okay, well, since you called me an idiot, maybe I'll slow down and think about it.
Human nature.
Yeah. It's anybody out there with kids, especially like, preteens and stuff like that. As a parent, I have to catch myself being that too. Because when my oldest gets up in my in my business, I'm like, hey, and then he gets all mad about it. I dig in instead of being like, okay, let's write this down and think about it.
We were going to go to the zoo,
Right.
but not now.
We're going to do something in school, but
there's a place for all of these roles. Just right now, the extreme right, the extreme left has a similar platform or technique, I should say, of thinking the loudest voice, the meanest, nastiest voice will rule the day.
right.
And that I will resist. I want to have reasonable conversations. I want to have debate. I don't want to agree with my colleagues all the time. But when we disagree, we have good discussions. Sometimes I change my mind. Sometimes they change their minds.
Right.
That's how things move ahead. Otherwise, we yell and scream. We go home after doing nothing.
Right, because again, to me, as I watch this, as I've evolved in watching this, it seems like 9 out of 10 motions, not actual like floor motions, but motions by a politician is it's still campaigning. It feels like everybody's campaigning all the time. It's sound bites. It's my biggest complaint recently was the KPD issue when American Cannon, had excused the KPD from the school agreement thing, and everybody flipped out. And then, Mayor Jacobs was jumping in, and it's like, nobody knows what we're actually talking about here.
Right.
Everybody's talking about this broad brush of it, of they're taking the cops out of school, which was never the point. It was never true at
There
any
were
level.
so many nuances left out of that conversation.
Yeah. And it was really frustrating to me because, like, and again, as a parent of a Knox County school kid, it wasn't long ago that I realized that the police officers in school are not sheriffs or KPD for the most part. There's 200
It's all three.
Right, there's 200,
Right.
but of the 250 total, 210 of them are Knox County school employees, and there's like 30 sheriffs and like 15 or 20 KPD officers. So the lion's share of every school has at least one, and they're school system employees, nothing else. And that's what drives me crazy about it, is because, like, everybody's just assuming that we're taking all of them away, and it's like, no, that's wholly wrong. Why is nobody, and especially out of either mayor's mouth, let alone any of especially the media part of it, not being like, hold on, guys, slow down, people. Let's actually clarify what we're talking about here. It's 15 of 250.
I don't remember the numbers offhand, but I have a graph of that. WUOT actually did a very decent job of putting the categories of who is in the school, and that we will not ever let. I mean, my kid's in school here. You think I'm going to take a chance with her safety?
Right.
It wasn't about leaving kids vulnerable. It was also about what are the resources that the KPD have right now, and where are they best used.
Right. Because, again, that was one of my thought processes on it. It's like you have 15, 17, however many officers it is that are in the schools instead of on the street. Well, how many do we want to be having on the street, and are we subtracting from that total number to put them in the schools because the schools can't afford it, or whatever the reason it is for how we got to where we are? Because one of the things to me is, like, I assume that there's a different training protocol for a school resource officer and some of the specific situational, training that they are taught versus a sheriff or a KPD officer. And so it's like, well, yeah, I would prefer a person trained specifically for that job than other people out there.
Right.
And so, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, yeah, let's not have KPD in schools. Let's not have the sheriff in schools. Maybe coming down and doing crowd control after a football game. Okay. Maybe helping out here and there as needed. But on the day-to-day, I would hope, at least, and maybe this is where I'm wrong too, but I would hope that there are specific sets of guidelines and protocols that a school officer has on how to deal, how to deal with kids versus dealing with adults on the street.
Right. De-escalation, how to keep them safe and then make them feel safe while the police or the security is there as well.
Right.
I don't want, my daughter at times feels like she's in jail.
Right.
There's so many around. So it's a real balance, nuance. That is where it is. But yeah, there's a group of people who are trained to do that, and that's important.
Right. And because again, the further I get into this, trying to understand the different bodies at play, the school budgets are so crazy. And then we're adding city budgets and county budgets on top of the school budgets, trying to figure out how to get the right amount of bodies in certain positions, being resource officers, being police officers, stuff like that, it's always a funding question. It's always a where the money's going or where the money isn't going because it's going here. And it's I don't know. The further I get in, the more I figure I don't know. Like the less I know, the more I know, the less I understand, I guess maybe is a better way to put it. And it's frustrating and it's hard. But that's the journey that I'm on in this. Okay. So when, so you made the decision to rerun, or to keep your seat.
Right.
And are there any specific issues right now that will be coming up in the new term that you're specifically interested in, that you feel like they're specifically important to talk about?
Yeah, as I spoke about Shad Road changing, the 3rd District is changing rapidly. And so it's a real delicate balance. Everything is in the gray, not the black and the white. Right? So we need more housing, but we also need to respect the neighborhoods that are there. So how do you work with the developers and with the community at the same time? How do you make this as win-win as possible? I know that if I've always, out my window, I've seen these woods, they start to feel like they're mine.
Right.
Right. And when someone starts developing it, it feels very much like, why are you in my driveway kind of feeling. You get a false sense of ownership. But there is some ownership. That is our community. But it's not the community against the evil developers, right? They're providing homes that we need. Now, how do we ask them, yes, we want you to provide these homes, but how can you fit into the community and not change the good things about here? Or what can you improve?
Right.
I've worked with developers to say, okay, there are stormwater issues that are already here before you're moving in. I know that it's part of the permitting process that you need to look into taking care of any stormwater issues that this development causes, but can you work on what's already here so it can actually help the community?
Right.
So that's a lot of conversations. That's trying to pull a lot of people out, and it's trying to remind everyone that there's not a bad guy in this.
Because I think one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, that I've more recently come to understand about it, it's like, well, it's cool, the value of my home's going up with all this pressure, but at some point there are, I think I'll be okay personally, but I think, once we get into some of the tax implications of the increased value in the homes and all these things that are going on, it's going to be more expensive to live in Knoxville.
Oh yeah. And
the less housing inventory we have, the more expensive it's going to get. So the more houses we get in, it'll help kind of level out this housing market, and our home values won't be skyrocketing to the point where people are going to get taxed out of their own homes, or get to the point where people can't buy homes in the city or county anymore because things are getting too expensive too fast because we don't have. It's a supply and demand conversation.
Right, and it affects the prices on the higher end to make them more reasonable. It's not addressing the affordability issue on the bottom, but it helps. Right.
Exactly. And so and then there's. Like as I'm watching it go on, like there's incentive for the government bodies to kind of let it get higher because it's going to raise the tax base at some point. But
if that's how politicians are thinking about it, that's not thinking the best for the community. Again, right? So I don't look at it that way. I don't think any of my colleagues do.
Okay.
It's like that's a consequence of the market right now, but it's also pricing the people that we're supposed to be serving out.
Right.
So it's that balance again, right? How do we keep this? I mean, I moved back to Knoxville over and over again. I kept leaving and coming back. And one of the things was how affordable it is. If we take that away, it's changing what Knoxville has been for everybody, right? So how do we give that to more people and not price out the people who have lived here 30, 40 years? It's like, yeah, sure, I'm a renter, but the value of my house, let's say it went up from $150 to $250 even. That's great. it's like, okay, I'm going to sell my house and make a lot of money, but where am I going to move?
Right.
Okay.
Wyoming. That's where you can afford a house
Right.
anymore. Yeah. That is the thing. It's like me and the wife joked about it. It's like, we've had a significant raise in the value of our home, and it's like, man, we could walk out of here and make some cash,
Right.
and then go move into my parents' house or something. That's about the option.
And
on
make it rain money inside there.
Right. At my mom's house. Yay.
Yeah.
I have a good buddy of mine who's been looking for a house for over a year, and he's gotten to the point where they don't even get a chance to see the house before there's multiple offers on it. Like, his realtor calling, this just came on the market, and they're like, okay, we'll go Tuesday. Well, there's 5 offers by the time they get there.
And I'm not saying that this is how Knoxville is going to go, but on Long Island, it had gotten to that point when I had my child and we were looking for a home. I sent my husband out on a motorcycle, said, okay, these are the things I'm looking for. Go, tour each and everything and just make the offer. He made the offer. There were 5 of us, overbid.
Right.
And over the years, then the recession came and our house went underwater $100,000.
Yeah.
And we got foreclosed on, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want other people in that position.
Right. And because one of the things I was reading about, it's not as common here, but I want to say it was in Salt Lake City or something like that, where there's California residents that are leaving California right now that are buying houses unseen. Just literally finding a listing on Zillow or whatever and making offers with the best a couple of pictures, not even going to the homes anymore. And what that does to the housing market and the price of value and stuff like that,
Right.
because it's like, they're months out of actually moving, but they're buying houses hand over fist. Then there's the whole Blackwater thing, but that's a big crazy one. I don't even quite understand that one yet. I've been reading on it a little bit. Blackwater's buying a bunch of property. Heard about that?
No.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Let me catch up on that.
I need to do more reading on it too, but I've heard a little bit about it and I'm confused. Well, there's this whole story about Bill Gates is the largest farm owner in the United States now. He owns the most acreage of any individual in the United States.
I am really trying to focus on Knoxville.
I know. I'm wandering off into and that's fine. Okay, so obviously we have the housing issue that we have here now. What other issues are going on okay, let's back up. What is happening currently, and what do you see in the next term happening to help mitigate the issues we're having with housing here?
One is supporting good housing being constructed. Another thing is, I really don't like rules for rules' sake.
Right.
Some common sense. The permitting process, the rules around how do we get safe housing, because that's what we want. We
Right.
want people who know what they're doing and, something's not going to fall down on you in a thunderstorm. But I think we can do that with a lot fewer rules and regulations that we have. There's some things that we need to not have a blanket rule, but like actually go to the site and go, okay, this rule shouldn't apply.
Right.
I could go to the details of one thing going on, but that might get boring.
No, I'm interested. Come on, go.
Okay, so AASHTO laws. It's amazing. I'm becoming a nerd on this stuff. I never thought I'd be interested.
Say it again. AASHTO laws?
AASHTO? Am I saying it wrong?
I don't.
Something like that. It means the if you have a driveway and the road, the curve of the road has to be a certain degree so that you can see someone coming out of the driveway. There's visibility issues, right? Important. But what if it's just a large circle neighborhood? That goes away.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Right? So that was something that happened early on in council to introduce me to that rule. I don't see it hinders a plan that somebody had to bring some
like if
decent housing.
So to see if I understand it correctly. So like if we're out on like Straw Plains or something like that, an actual like state highway, well-trafficked road that has a curve to it, you can't put the driveway in the middle of the curve so that the people driving on that road can't see the driveway or you trying to come in and out of it.
Right.
But that same rule applies to if I have, a Barber Circle and I'm building a neighborhood. And
people are going 30 miles an hour, or 25 miles an hour.
Right, yeah, because city's 25 if not posted, right?
35?
Is it 35? I thought county was 35. And city
I'm
was
not
25.
sure.
But anyway, point being, most
I know
neighborhoods.
no one goes it.
Okay. But most planned neighborhoods are usually like 10 or 15 anyway.
Right.
And so to put this rule in place that you can't put a house or a driveway on a curve in a 15-mile-an-hour neighborhood seems a little overkill. I guess.
Right.
Is that the illustration?
If the point is safety, that's there already.
Right.
So the rule is it shouldn't be applicable.
Right.
But it takes a lot of resources to go out there and to figure that out and to adapt to what the specific situation is instead of making blanket rules
Right.
that apply. So we are at a point where we need to look at the specifics. I hate when things don't make common sense.
Right. Okay. That's a good one. What else? You got another one? That was fun. I like that.
Oh, what else is going on?
So
Wow, the stadium's still going on.
Yeah, true. I don't know. It's still it's the same time. I think we talked about it last time you were here. It's like it still feels inevitable to me. It doesn't feel like it's a question of if. It's exactly how is the only thing at play.
Yeah, it definitely feels more like that.
I haven't got a chance to catch many of the Sports Authority meetings because they're during the daytime, and I do have a job. They're usually like 8 or 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They're on the thing. I could look them up and watch them in post, but
so it's going to happen. So what are we going to do
right
to make it serve the most of us? Right. And if we don't want to make all of our money off of property taxes and raise those things, which I don't think anybody on council wants to do that. No one's thinking in that direction. What it means is that we need to do economic development that lifts the city in some other way.
Okay.
So how do we make this serve that purpose? And if we look at it from that point of view, like what kind of investment do we need to make so that we all get the most out of it? You know, as I said last time, it's not a good feeling to know that there are going to be a few people that make a lot of money, but I can't focus on that.
Right.
How is it going to serve the greater good?
Right.
So that's where
that's right. Because me too. That's a thought I had on it. It's like, yeah, I guess it sucks that we're going to make the Boyd family and the people that are involved in it a bunch of extra money, and we're kind of helping do that or whatever. Okay, I agree. That's problematic. But if handing that off to the Boyd family does X, Y, and Z that grows Knoxville, that that helps with a number of the issues that we're trying to fix, and we can use this as a tool to get there, then it's a consequence of the action that the Boyds get extra money out of it. All right, that's a consequence that I might be willing to deal with if these other things can get dealt with.
Oh, yeah. Are we going to say no because they might do well? Or are we going to go, how's it going to serve us?
Right.
So it's once again, there's some common sense there.
Right.
On principle, I'm going to vote no. But there are lots of discussions about, so the CBA thing did not work out, which makes me really sad.
CBA?
Community Benefits Agreement, right? I worked initially trying to get a lot of groups together to speak on behalf of communities that may not get served by the baseball stadium.
Right.
That wouldn't see the benefits. But then it seems like a member of the CBA not using democratic process decided that they were going to be the voice of it.
Uh-huh.
That voice I did not think was a good voice.
Okay.
Trying to be kind. It did not represent the communities as I thought needed. It seemed to be more about self-interest than about community interest.
Okay.
I cannot just stand up and declare that I represent a community that I have not spoken to.
Right.
Right. So there were politics going on in that world. So I felt like I couldn't lift that voice. So the CBA agreement, which is where I was always talking to Boyd saying, if you don't honor that, I won't vote yes.
Right.
And I've had to back off of that because there's not a legitimate group doing that, bringing it present.
Right.
So I do think that they have worked very hard to try to speak to a lot of community, but I'm still trying to think the 3rd district. There are a lot of working class people that can. How is it going to help Norwood, the people that live off of Western Avenue that are working class?
You're fine. Just keep going.
Okay. That may not be able to afford $100 evening. That's I've heard people say the tickets are cheap. It's like, yeah, but they need to eat while they're there, and then maybe they want a beer. Okay, we good?
I don't know.
We'll keep working on it.
Yeah, there's a little hum.
Now it's bigger.
It'll come and go. Yeah.
So I spoke with Randy Boyd, and then there are a lot of different groups involved. This isn't just Randy Boyd's baby anymore. He's the one that began the whole thing, but there's Gem Development, there's the Sports Commission, the 3 or 4 different groups. that are now members of this project. Increasing the groups that are involved will increase the positive potential of it. So how is this going to serve a neighborhood that... Anyway, I asked him to do neighborhood nights.
Right.
Do we need to do something like, if we want tourist dollars, if that's really what we're going for, then how about if you have a Knox County ID or Knoxville city address, either or,
Right.
then there's some discount that you get, or there are certain nights where it is more for residents.
Right.
Some way to help lift families that it's kind of, maybe they can go once a year,
Right.
but life is a different experience for so many people.
On that, real quick, just because I'm thinking about it, on this Saturday at what, 11?
Yeah, they're
Is
having a block party.
that block party a chance for everybody if you want to go down there? It's underneath the bridge at James White Parkway, right on the edge of the old city. So if you want to go down there and ask some of these questions directly,
Please.
this is an opportunity to do so.
Right.
I was going to try to go, but then I've got a scheduling conflict. I was really just going to go give out business cards. It's really selfish, but that's how I do
I
things.
have to go to work on Saturday mornings. But yeah, that's also the thing. If anybody is having feelings about this one way or the other, don't just say it's inevitable, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
Speak up, because we have leeway in how this is going to go down.
Right, because again, for me and for what we've done on the show about it is just trying to understand the financing, and how nuanced and complicated that was, and how hard it was to watch different meetings on it, watch the different local news on it, read the different news stories on it. And it's like, I don't understand this. And so me and my stubbornness, I just call him in and tell him like, hey man, let's do a show. And we sat down and we did it, and we talked about it, and it's like, okay, now I understand the financing. Hopefully the listeners got it figured out too, because that's the one thing that I don't quite understand. Like, I understand the way the financing is supposed to work. I can't quite rationalize how it makes sense at the same time as because it really comes off as it's not going to cost a lot in the governmental terms of a lot. And me and you, it's a lot of money. But,
yeah. Oh yeah.
But,
yeah. The $100 a night is a lot. But yeah, the $13 million gift given from the state definitely changed the whole conversation.
Yeah. And the amount and again, assuming it even half works, it shouldn't be that hard to get the benefits of that district and the different new taxes generated by it. It makes sense to me.
It's not a good feeling to think that tax funders. We need to change the way we're also talking about it, that tax funders, that I'm on the hook to help certain people make lots of money. I'm on the hook hoping for a return, that this, just like the convention center.
Right. Investment is the word.
Right.
I'm willing, and this is the best way I figure out how to do it, really. If you really think about it, I'm a county resident, so I only have half. But for the city residents listening, it's $40 a year for the opportunity to take part in things that are going down there,
Which there'll be a lot of free things too.
Right. And so if if $40 a year for the next 30 years or so is worth it to you to have a concert coming to town, to go see a baseball game, and yes, you're still paying for the concert or the baseball game, but you're investing in the option. And if you think about it that way and you do the math on it, again, it's about $40 a year if I did the math right for a city resident, because you're going to 20 to the city, 20 to the county. It makes sense to me. And, and that's not even counting the new bottom line of the city budget and the new bottom line of the county budget, that the new income that this creates, and then where that money gets spent on other stuff. Because, as schools is an often huge topic, and we always need more money for the schools. We have a 900, it's county. It's like, I think it's a $900 million county budget or something
yes,
like
this
that.
will raise money for the schools.
Right.
Right.
And so if this raises county income, maybe this is a better question for you, is since it is in the city, it's going to get city sales tax, not county sales tax. That's one of the things I'm still confused about. But even if it does get city sales tax, 60% of city sales tax you can pay back to the school system.
Exactly.
Right. So either one, it's
so
just
the city's still paying for county schools, a percentage of it.
Right.
So the schools will get something out of it. The city will get something out of it. We can provide more services. We can provide workforce. There are a lot of things.
Yeah. Can we sue the state? I want to sue the state.
Okay, when do we do that?
I'm just saying,
and why?
Because I was thinking about the school money thing, and I know some school boards have done it around the state, but I think the city, county, and school board should collectively sue the state for the school funding issues. Because we were talking about that, we're like 60% of sales tax revenue collected by the city, as well as 60% more or less of the sales tax revenue collected by the county goes to pay for Knox County schools, in addition to the tiny amount that the state sends back. And it's not a tiny amount. It's like 55% of the total school budget or something like that. But all this money that we're collecting for taxes, that's we are making up for the difference that the state is not paying their part of.
The state is a terrible steward of our money, right? I pay federal taxes. The state refuses to take them back to help me with mental health issues or if I'm unemployed.
Right.
So I'm with you on this is not fiscally responsible.
To be fair, we're not the federal government's not great with their stewards of our money either. But maybe we might get out of Afghanistan this year, and it might save us a few $1 trillion. But we'll see if that ever happens in reality. But yes, the one of the issues that I have, and just kind of following the money kind of thing, it's like it seems like we start the furthest away and work our way back to local, where it would make more sense to me to start local, and then. Because I've done the math on it. The largest part of my tax burden is income tax that goes to the federal government. And then the second one is the state. And then the third of my tax burden is local. And it's like, well, of all the services of these things that I use, the local one's the one I use the most.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense that one I spend the most money on? Because they're more likely to be adjustable to what we need as a community, as opposed to DC trying to figure out what Knox County needs.
You can bump into me at the grocery store and tell me your issues, and you will get a response.
Right, exactly, yeah. I've run into a few people here and there around town, and that's what's been really fun about doing this show is like, hey, I know who you are, that's neat.
Yeah.
And I usually try not to do issue stuff when I run into people there. I save that for the show. But, okay, so stadium's still a thing. We're going to try to figure out how to make it more affordable for locals to use it from time to time. Is there anything, like there's been talk about a grocery store going in. Is there anything specific about the development that you think the community locally needs, like a grocery store or something of that nature that would be a commodity for the community as well as part of the business interest of what's going on down there?
So we cannot make a business open. Right? We can encourage it. We can incentivize it. And then again, there are issues with incentivizing things.
Sure.
Right? I'm not a fan of that, but that's how the system is. And if you don't, you lose more that way, right? So it's once again, like, I don't like doing this, leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but what is the greater good that it serves? And you have to be mature enough to think that way, right? So that's a food desert area,
right?
For sure. When we have food deserts, then think about the payoff. If I only have a corner store that overcharges, does not have produce, and my food group is orange, Cheetos and Fanta or whatever. I mean, that's what is available oftentimes at a corner store. Then my health isn't going to be the best. Then there are going to be costs for that. My children's health isn't going to be the best. So the consequences of that. So yes, that was a long answer to we need a grocery store there.
I always thought it was weird that we don't have one downtown, like actual like Gay Street, Market Square area. I always thought it was weird we don't have some sort of small, like I'm not talking a super Kroger or anything, but at least, if those very expensive lofts that are going in down there that I have to drive for my groceries.
Well,
or
before
get them delivered.
Were supermarkets, there were markets.
Right. I mean, I guess granted, you can at least get on a Market Square once a week and do once or twice a week to do the farmer's market. Yeah.
True.
But either way, it's still odd to me that there's not a full, general grocery store, not a giant one, just something that day-to-day people could use. But I guess, I don't know, like I've never lived in a city in the sense that, like I've read stories of people who live in New York that they buy dinner. They buy the materials for dinner every day. They don't have they don't go to the grocery store once a week. Like I go once a week and drop a couple $100, get a whole week's worth, and then maybe a few things I forgot throughout the week, where apparently a lot of people in major cities will buy like 1 or 2 days worth of groceries. They don't buy.
Not just major cities. I think a lot of people live that way.
Really?
5 o'clock, the markets are more crowded.
Yeah, I just don't like going to the grocery store.
Me neither. I'm not a shopper. When I was younger, we used to go for the month.
Right.
We had a freezer.
Yeah, that's one of the things the studio is taking up where I should have put my freezer. But
so there are a lot of stores where people go in daily, and if you don't have transportation to them, or if they're just not close by, like I can theoretically walk to groceries. It's a mile, but I can do it.
Right.
I I don't. It would be interesting to find out how many people in town have a grocery store that if they had to, they could get to.
Yeah, I can walk one from here, but okay. So one of the things that's going on right now, and that has a large future, another investment kind of conversation, is we're trying to convert over to all electric buses. I don't know where I'm sitting on this one. I haven't done a lot of research on it. Does this seem to be an issue that has any contention to it, or is this just kind of it's happening?
There's a little bit of contention just with the supplier, right? And I think that ethics matter, morals matter. If the city's going to be getting into contracts, we need to know who we're contracting with.
Right.
We can't contract with the devil. I'm not calling them the devil, but we need to be aware of who. We need to be aware of who we're doing business with.
Right.
If they are truly having an issue that keeps coming up about the way they treat their employees at, I cannot remember their name, and it probably would not be good to even bring it up. But if there's an issue with that company that they are not doing the right thing, we need to address that. So that's really the only contention with the electric buses that I'm hearing. The other piece is that
is that a local company in the sense of like
no,
regional, statewide, or is it
no,
like Vermont or something crazy?
Yeah, down south,
Okay.
Louisiana, Texas, something like that.
Is there any okay? This is a current council person question. Is there any intent on local vendors of anything that we do whenever we're doing stuff on a city level?
So this is a state restriction put on us, right? When we put the bids out, we cannot weight a person, give extra points for them being local.
I mean, I could kind of see. Now that I say it out loud, I could see some potential issues with having a local preference, just because it's my buddy that sponsors me and helps me with my campaigns and
right,
stuff like that.
But we can eliminate that part by making it competitive bids,
right?
But within a certain region. Like, I want to build our local artists, let's say, and the art piece that's supposed to be a couple of large art pieces were bid. And legally, we have to bid it nationwide or however, wide.
Right.
It can't be regional. Whereas we have local artists.
Right.
That is Knoxville representing Knoxville. That's an expression of ourselves versus somebody from Brooklyn coming in and doing something for us.
I need to make a note on that. I need to talk to Massey about that. I don't like that. That's yeah.
So there are a lot of things that could help us with housing, incentivizing developers to say, okay, this is all good. Can you put 10%? Can you make 10% of your development affordable? But legally, we cannot do that. Legally, we cannot. There are a lot of things that I think would be helpful.
You can ask,
that we
but you can't require it.
We cannot require it.
Right. Because I was just thinking, because the CBA with the sports, or the CBA with the Boyd and Gem Group thing that was being worked on, since it's a private company doing it, that doesn't fall under the same restriction. As far as well, the because parts of the CBA was at least that I read on it was supposed to be that they were going to get local contractors to do a certain percentage of the work.
So we as government cannot require it. We cannot require the CBA either.
Okay.
So
it was okay. Because again, that's one of those that's a good clarification, because one of those that a lot of people talked about was, we don't have hooks on these certain issues that where you can actually hold the Boyd Group accountable if they don't follow these things. And it's like, well, everybody, at least the way I always read it, was that Boyd at all costs is going to avoid signing anything. But what I'm hearing right now is that even if he signs something, it doesn't mean anything because we can't legally ask it.
It doesn't mean anything
legally.
Yeah,
right.
or with us, I would hope, and I trust, gentlemen's agreements, and there would be legal contracts signed.
Let me say, but again, like, to me, the narrative on it was always that, Boyd was avoiding signing it because he was probably going to break it, not that there's nothing to sign because we can't make him sign anything, theoretically.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the distinctions. Distinction.
Yep. And again, it's not, but again, it's that narrative was trying to paint Boyd in the dirty businessman brush, where the reality is this is a function of government that isn't allowing that, even if Boyd was willing to.
Right.
And but the narrative wasn't clear on that, and that's neat. That's something neat to understand.
So I
not
could
good,
pressure, like I had said, I encouraged him to speak with the people that were working on the CBA, and I can pressure, but I cannot require it.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting. I like that. That is something to continue to look further into, because I think there's a problem with that where we can't. I don't why. again, the only thing I could see as being a potential issue with allowing local preference would be to say, Randy Boyd's a big donor to X, and then whomever hires Randy Boyd's company to do a thing, and then there's this kind of, it gets that dirty money of politics thing a little bit more directly because you're allowed to preference a neighbor instead of taking the full competitive bids. But you could still take local competitive bids, and it doesn't require you to take the local. It just lets you lean a little harder into a local. That's okay.
I would love for you to delve into all the different ways that the city has our hands tied by the state level.
Well, because I dove halfway into one as I was talking. It was more county level, but I got some city stuff on it too. Yeah. Is especially in the county, all the committees and commissions and boards that are under the county's purview, whether it's the mayor's office or the commission's office. There's like 40 something of them. And when I asked for it from the communications officer at the county, I said, will you please list how they exist? And some of them are just created by the commission, but the majority of them are either state mandate or on the charter. And so there's a whole list of them that Smith, County Commissioner Smith, I think.
Smith?
Maybe. No. Anyway, that we were talking, whomever it is, she's the commissioner. They are the commissioner on the committee of 4 committees. There's a oversight because they annually look through and see what committees are doing and if they're worth keeping and stuff like that. And the feeling I got was that there's like 7 we'd like to get rid of, but their state mandate or their county charter, and so it becomes a ballot item, or we have to get state legislators to remove it for us. And so again, on that same hands tied, we're stuck with these things that exist that's cost some amount of money, but nobody wants them, nobody likes them, but we can't do anything about it because it comes down from whatever. Because that's one of the things. And this again, this is something that I don't know where to start on. There's a story out of Wisconsin where one of the big meat companies is trying to put this big hog farm in this county, and the whole county is up in arms, doesn't want it. Even the local county commission or whatever it is there agrees that they don't want it, gets a letter, the county commission or whatever it is in that county gets a letter from the state saying, if you do anything to stop this from happening, it's a federal crime and you will be prosecuted. And so it's like, well, where's our autonomy as a county in this conversation? Right. We don't want this 10,000 head hog farm coming in because it's going to ruin our economy. It's going to ruin our environment. It's going to ruin all these things about us. And we have no say.
I mean, I understand that it may have begun to make sure that, there were certain standards that a county just didn't go rogue. But to not have any say whatsoever, not even a discussion, just a letter saying it's illegal.
Right.
That's not democracy.
Right. It's very strange to me because again, it's one of those I think that it's the supremacy of powers or whatever it is. That it's a strange ism. It goes back to the tax thing we were talking about earlier. That the most authority and the most money goes to the furthest one away. Where, I've met you. I've met a bunch of people around here. There's contact. I can run into you at the grocery store, as the joke was earlier, and we could talk about what's going on in our community and ways to fix it. And we can work as a community to fix things. Or we can't because a state level issue is keeping the thing in place. And those are I agree. Those are one of the things I'm very interested in. And I would be remiss to say that I have the skills to really dig into that well, but it is something I'm curious about, and I'm going to start poking at and seeing if I can't figure some parts out of.
Cool.
All right. So let's one more thing. What's one more thing that's coming up that's important about this election moving forward in the city?
So there's election coming up. Today was the second candidate forum where we all got together and spoke. And what I was noticing is I don't know if I didn't know when I ran for council how many issues we cover and where our hands are tied and what is the power and the decision making that we need to make as a council. And a lot of the issues that are being brought up are non-issues. The tax referendum.
Right.
Right. That's smoke and mirrors. Nashville tried this. The state has certain rules and regulations on this. I love changing the charter, the concept of changing the charter or referendum. I am in support of movements like that. But I don't think it's necessary. That
Right.
the tax rate has not gone up. We keep saying that it's not going to. We're trying to pull in other ways to get in income and not looking directly at, okay, let's put, we're working on other ways to actively show that we're not trying to raise taxes. And to make this the issue when it is a non-issue is smoke and mirrors and a waste of everybody's time and resources. So I would like to see the new group of opponents spend more time on the actual issues: zoning, garbage pickup, fire department, road paving, trash litter. These things that come up that are genuine concerns, and as you're saying, impact people the most.
That we can actually do something about locally. And
Yes.
and again, I agree with you. That's one of those things that that if I was really good at what I was doing, that would be probably my number one project piece would be, let's break down who can do what, who is responsible for what. Because again, like this all started to me, it's like, I don't know who's running for these positions. And then it's like, I don't know what these positions are, really. I know that it's a title and they go to Nashville for a thing or they go downtown for meetings and stuff like that. But I don't know what the job is. Like, I don't know that, like I'm getting better at it, but it's like, zoning is the biggest. I mean, land use is probably the biggest function of the city council. That's what the majority of actual, true, impactful things that the city council does, and it's the least talked about one. It's the least fun to talk about, and I understand why. But it's it has the biggest impact. It changes the most about what Knoxville is and is doing and how we're going moving forward. Right. And it's the least talked about issue. Like, how are we going to do this? I mean, what was there was a study came out a little while ago that we're by 2040 we should be over 750,000 people or something like that.
I just know the way to stop any tax rate from being raised is really to freeze your assessment rate.
Right.
Who wants that?
Right.
I don't want my house to be undervalued when I go to sell it. Just so the whole argument is a little bit
but that's a
false.
secondary. I mean, I agree with you 100% on what that part about it is. But at the same time, I have a hard time on the economics of what the assessor's office does versus what actual market value is. Because the assessor,
right.
I mean, because there's not a house in Knoxville that's going to right now that's going to sell for what the assessed value is. It's going to go way over it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they're like,
we underestimate.
Right. And even in that, and I should get an assessor in here, and we'll have that next year because that's on the ballot.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those. Is the property assessed value supposed to be a reference to what the sale value is of the home? I don't think that that's what it sounds like it should be, but I don't think that's ever really what it is. And that's another rabbit hole again that we get to wait till the next election.
And the
on
city
that one.
council does not have the power to do this.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
It's a county level. I mean, does the city have an assessor's office? No. I mean,
Yes.
you have city property tax.
Yes.
Is that an elected official or is that an appointment?
We have a tax office that gets involved in that, but I think the general assessments are done by the county.
The county assessor?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't see, this is why Metro works, because then we can all be on the same page and we don't have to split duties and then collect taxes and then pay taxes to the other body and this, that,
People feel strongly about that. The ones who are for it feel really strongly. The people who are really against it feel strongly. And I don't know, but I think we should look into it.
I do. That's really that's the more detailed version of my thought process. Is a real conversation about what it would look like, how it would work. Because again, we have so many that are already there. School system's already there. The planning commission is already there. There's so many that are already there. How many are we repeating? And is there value in those repeats? Because again, going back to your, we're talking about trying to develop, get more housing in here, try to trim down some of this red tape and some of these restrictions on building that are useless. Well, how many of them are city and how many of them are county? Like, and especially as a developer trying to navigate between city and county at the same time. And I'm sure somewhere in there, deep in there, that of people that understand the depths of all the coding stuff, there's probably some that conflict in the same spot, where like a certain thing can and can't be in the same spot by the two different bodies' codes at the same time.
And city, not county, and state, like the rules for plumbers licensing are different for all of those. We could start condensing, consolidating a few things.
I'll just throw all the licensure. I'm not a big fan of professional licensure anyway, so
I want some, not too much.
I mean, I would go. Well, I guess we could get into an argument of what defines life and death, but I think that's Like one of the okay, we'll end on this one because this is another one of my randoms. One of the
Okay.
craziest things ever that I've ever heard in my life is I was getting my hair cut, and I was talking to the lady about her license is sitting there on the table, and I asked her a question about the exam or whatever, and she's like, "I'll tell you the craziest thing about that exam." She's like, "As part of the class, as part of the things you have to know to be a cosmetologist in the state of Tennessee, is you have to know how to identify head lice." Mm-hmm. Which totally makes sense. But I can't tell you if you have it. Because that'd be because that would be, by definition, it's a medical diagnosis, and I am not a doctor.
Do you remember what I was talking about, common sense?
Yeah.
I want my hairdresser to tell me things like that.
Right.
I'm not asking for a diagnosis and a prescription.
Right, but that's, and it's like, I tried real hard to rationalize why that is, and I can't. I cannot put my head around any reason why you are trained to identify, but cannot tell the
Sometimes
individual.
these rules are based on the worst case scenario that a cosmetologist starts writing prescriptions, or right, we think about it as going down this loop that is a disaster. It's casting the net widely
Right.
again.
It's like, what's the worst thing that happens? I'm going to shave my head and I have to go through a couple months of looking weird and bald. Man, I'm sure that when I get my hair growing back, I'll go and yell at that place and they'll cut my hair for free for a while. I'm sure we could work that out outside of the worst case scenario of the reality of, I might go to and buy some, lice shampoo from the store and waste money that I didn't, because I didn't actually have it when she misdiagnosed me.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. Okay,
Right.
Plug your stuff. Website, Facebook page, that kind of stuff.
Thank you. So, voteseema.com. And I'm going to be doing door knocking this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Please give me a call. Go to my website, sign up. I would love to have you on board. I am really trying to reach out to the 3rd District. There's so many people that I know now that I didn't know before. So it's contacting them and letting, I think the most important thing is letting people know that there's an election and how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As we
For
started
sure.
this whole conversation.
So do you just go door to door? You just pick a neighborhood and go to every door?
No. I go to the people that I have had communication with first and
Okay.
remind them that there's an election coming up,
Okay.
and then people that I think may vote for me.
Where do you get that list?
Right. Usually Vote Builder, or you can go to the Election Commission or Nation Builder.
Yeah, because it was funny. Just an aside, I was talking to Matt Shears from the County Democratic Party yesterday, and he said some Garrett Holt's door knocking team was going around, and they went right past his house. It's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't go to your house either if I was them. I'm sure you would have had a good time with them knocking on your door, but it would have been a waste of their time, pretty clearly.
Right.
But
So when I first ran, I have to thank every single person who took a chance on me and voted for me, because I was so new to this whole realm.
right.
But I think that I have done a very good job. I think I have learned a great deal, and I think I have earned a lot of respect from people. And I want to continue working on that. That's my plug.
Well, cool. Because I think you get the specific joy of actually getting to see numbers to prove that statement. Mm-hmm. You'll get to, the votes will go in, and you'll get to see, how it changes, not only in your district but in the citywide, because it's weird, but that's what it is. So we deal with it. All right. Any last words? Any last final thing you want to get out before when you play the outro music?
No, thank you so much for rescheduling.
I appreciate you coming out.
being here.
I'm a flexible person, at least in that way. Yeah, flex jokes. I do a little yoga from time to time. I'm not ashamed to say it. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or go to our website, almostinagreement.com. There you can get all the episodes through the site directly, or you can go to your favorite podcast provider and get all the episodes there. Side note, if you happen to find a podcast provider that doesn't carry us, let me know. I'll see if I can figure out how to get on there. That's almostinagreement at gmail.com. While you're at any of these places, please like, share, friend, follow, subscribe, whatever the term is, to help us spread the word out. We got 3 weeks before early voting starts, something like that, maybe 4 weeks before early voting gets kicking in, and then we'll have the primaries, and then later in the year we'll have the general. So we're going to keep working on this. I've got somebody else tomorrow, I forgot, but anyway, we got more stuff going on. We're going to keep working through it. Special thanks to Albright Brewing for my sweet hat. Albright Grove, they're on Sutherland over there, so check them out when you get some time. That is not a paid plug, so don't sue me. We're almost in here, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you soon.